Our passage this week comes from Mark chapter 6, verses 30 through 34, 53 to 56. If you need to pause the video in order to read the scriptures, please do so. Mark chapter 6, verses 30 to 34, and then 53 to 56. Last week, we read from Mark chapter 6 as well, from verses 1 to 13. We read about how Jesus returned to his hometown and tried to teach people there of God's message. But despite his ungodly gift of preaching and theological understanding, the people in his hometown did not accept Jesus' message, and they rejected his teachings. Jesus, as Mark tells us, was surprised at their unbelief. So instead, Jesus sent his disciples to other parts of the area, and in those areas, the disciples healed people, helped people, and the people accepted God and the gospel. The passage this week is the immediate aftermath of these events. Even though between verses 13 and 30, there's another passage, and that is more or less about John the Baptist than about what Jesus and the disciples were doing. So in verse 30 today, Mark tells us that immediately after the disciples returned from their mission work, they gathered around Jesus and told Jesus what they had done. And Jesus tells them, well, good. Let's get going then. Let's go to a place where we all can rest. Rest, or in Christian terms and Jewish terms, Sabbath, is a commandment, one of the Ten Commandments. Thus, it is utterly important for a Christian in his or her faith journey. We all do need to observe Sabbath regularly, to rest regularly. But in the midst of this rest, the Sabbath, Jesus and his disciples were interrupted. Instead of shunning them, Mark tells us that Jesus had compassion for them. So instead of taking the Sabbath, Jesus' compassion took over and Jesus cared for them. Compassion is one of the most important tenets, or another way to say it, teachings of Christianity. But even though it is one of the most important tenets, in the modern age, it does seem that Christian church has lost our compassion. Instead of showing compassion, the Christian church has increasingly been displaying a holier-than-thou and vengeful outward tone towards the others. However, this is exactly the opposite of what Jesus teaches us through the witness of the gospel writings. Jesus, in the midst of being tired, has compassion for the crowd. Yes, Sabbath is very important, but for Jesus, and perhaps for us, breaking Sabbath to have compassion and to display compassion through healing of the others may be justified. This is not the only time where Jesus breaks Sabbath in order to realize compassion. Then we see in verses 53 to 56, once again, after they took the break, they went to Gennesaret. They were there once again, swarmed by people looking for them in order to receive healing. They've got a reputation as healers. Mark tells us, wherever Jesus went, into villages or cities or farms, they laid the sick in front of them, begging Jesus to heal them. There once was a time when the church is a place where the sick would seek refuge and receive healing. You must be thinking, wait a minute, we're not all doctors. We're not all psychologists. How can we heal? Churches are not full of physicians, nurses, or healers. How can we be healing people? I'm reminded of an encounter that I had with a visitor of the church. On a Wednesday afternoon, after a Sunday in the morning, I was in my office. A stranger comes by to the church office. I actually recognized her somehow. She wanted to talk to her pastors, and I was there. So I sat down to talk to her, and she told me that she was healed here this past Sunday. I was very puzzled. A healing? If there was a healing, how come I didn't hear about it? You see, what she meant was that she was really feeling down on Sunday. And the sister of the church, I still haven't figured out who, sat down with her and talked to her, then gave her a hug. A small gesture on this sister's part, but a huge gesture on the part of this lady who was hurting. She said she received healing from this small gesture of love. You see, when I hear healing, I'm just like you. I think of a physical harm. I think of a physical hurt, physical wound. But no, some people need to be healed of their emotional scars. Some people need encouragement as a form of this healing that they need. Our small gestures, our small signs of love may be just what the doctors ordered for this person to receive healing. And that, my friends, my sisters, and my brothers, is something that a church can do no matter what profession we are. We can always heal others so that others may know Christ by our love. Amen.